On a chilly morning in the waters of Frostholm, 3 Canadian fishermen set out for what they thought would be a typical fishing trip. But they never expected to encounter a tiny Arctic fox stranded on a towering iceberg. Alone and terrified, the fox had nowhere to turn as hungry seagulls circled menacingly above. The fishermen decide to step in, unaware that this moment will change everything. What did they do, and how will it all unfold? Stay tuned for today's video on Animals Need Love to find out more. Early in the morning, on a cool Frostholm lake, Evan Matthews, James Carter, and Daniel Stone, 3 experienced fishermen, got ready for their normal fishing trip. Just above the horizon, the sun was beginning to rise, giving the water a soft orange glow. The cool wind mixed with the smell of the sea's saltiness. Both men worked at the same time, doing their morning jobs with the ease of practice. After carefully packing their gear, they checked their boat and made sure they had everything they needed for the day. Their living depended on it. The sea, the fish, and Frostholm's rough scenery were all familiar and even comforting. While the boat left the bay and headed out into the open water, the guys talked quietly and enjoyed the beautiful scenery. After taking a deep breath of the fresh air as the boat cut through the water, the guys went on board. The sound of the waves hitting the ship and the calls of seabirds in the distance felt soothing. They were looking forward to another long day of fishing. It took the fishermen a long time to get to a spot where they had gotten a lot of fish before. The men started to throw their lines into the water once the boat was moored. They were getting excited about the hunt as they felt the pull of the sea. Their feet quickly felt the water below them come to life. A big school of fish swam by, making the surface move. The cool water made their scales shine. They looked at each other with wide eyes. That was a good sign. The day looked like it would be a good one for fishing. Evan smiled, and his tired face creased with joy. His words could be heard across the boat as he said, "It looks like we found the right spot." With his usual quietness, but still great eagerness, James nodded. There should be a lot of stuff today. Daniel, the youngest and most recent addition, was already making his first catch. He laughed as the fish moved around in his net, excited to feel the tug on the line. Putting out their nets and catching catch after catch, the team worked well together. Their work flowed easily because they had done it a million times before. Everything looked like it was going to go well for the day. But as the boat continued its slow drift, they couldn't shake the feeling that something unexpected was coming. And little did they know, the feeling was about to become all too real. Evan looked off into the distance. Through the fog, there was a faint shape that was getting clearer and clearer by the second. They had never seen anything like it before. A huge iceberg with sharp edges that rose high above the water and were lit by the sun's soft glow. Daniel said, "Look at that." His voice was a mix of amazement and awe. "That's a big one." Evan smiled and steered the boat toward the iceberg. "I've never seen one like it before." "We're getting there." As they got closer, the iceberg was even more amazing. Its huge size made it look like it was from another world, and the sun's rays reflecting off it gave it an ethereal glow. The fishers were all stunned and couldn't say a word. Evan guided the boat even closer because he was so very interested. The men had been out on these seas many times before, but this time it felt like they had found something new. "What do you think that is?" James looked over the edge of the boat and asked. Evan said with a sense of excitement in his voice, "Let's find out." As they got closer to the iceberg, though, the fog started to lift a bit, showing something they hadn't seen coming, something none of them could have seen coming. On the very end of the whale tail of the iceberg, there was a small, single figure. The Arctic fox was very small, and its white fur stood out against the ice. The animal stood still, its wide eyes scanning the distance. It was very clear that it was in danger. Evan spoke. "It doesn't belong there, that little thing." His voice was full of worry. James nodded, but his worried face showed it. "The land is too far away. Not doing anything will make it end quickly." The fox's eyes quickly moved back and forth, as if it could feel how dangerous its situation was. The cries of the hungry birds above kept getting louder as they circled around, looking for an easy meal. It was clear the fox couldn't get away from them or the cold. Danny leaned over the edge of the boat with a determined look on his face. "We must assist it. There's no way we can leave it there." The fishermen looked at each other and agreed in silence that they were now in charge of the fox's fate. Without hesitation, the men began to take action. Evan made careful moves to bring the boat closer to the iceberg so that they could reach the fox, but it wasn't easy because the ice was rough and slippery, and they couldn't get too close to the edge. They didn't want to scare the fox so much that it fell into the cold water below. "I'll try to get closer," Evan said, his voice steady but tense. He grabbed the rope from the boat and tied it securely around his waist. "I'll climb up. We don't have much time." James and Daniel both nodded, and they looked at the ice with a trained eye. They knew that one mistake could put them all in danger, but they couldn't stand the thought of leaving the fox to defend itself. Evan slowly climbed out of the boat and onto the icy surface. His hands shook slightly from the cold, but his focus was razor sharp. The fox, still trembling, backed away as he approached, its fear palpable. "Easy there, little one," Evan called softly, trying to calm the animal. "We're not going to hurt you." The fox didn't move, its wide eyes fixed on Evan as he inched closer. The fishermen on the boat watched anxiously, ready to assist if anything went wrong. Evan reached out carefully, trying to make himself seem less threatening. But the fox, unsure and terrified, remained at the far edge of the ice, poised to leap at any sudden movement. Things were very dangerous right now. If the fox made a mistake, it could fall into the cold water. Evan held his breath and hoped the animal would trust him. After several tense moments, the fox made a move. It carefully stepped forward, hesitating but eventually trusting Evan enough to inch closer. Evan slowly reached out, offering the fox a hand, knowing that it was his only chance to earn its trust. When the fox finally stepped into his grasp, Evan let out a quiet sigh of relief. He carefully put the shaking thing into a box that James had set up on the boat. The fox was lighter than expected because it had been out in the weather for days and its body was weak. "Got her?" Evan said, his voice soft with relief. "We've got to get her warm and safe fast." The fishermen carefully pulled the boat away from the iceberg, their hearts still pounding from the close call. The little fox, exhausted and shaken, curled into the box. It remained motionless, as if too drained to even try and resist the change in its environment. James gently placed a blanket over the box to shield the fox from the cold wind. They had no way of knowing what kind of trauma the fox had endured in its time on the iceberg, but they were determined to help it recover. In the days that followed, the fox remained quiet, barely moving, its body weak and its mind still shaken from the ordeal. The fishermen took turns tending to her, offering food and water, but the fox didn't seem to trust them fully just yet. Every time one of them got too close, the animal would flinch or retreat into the corner of the box. Gradually, over the next few days, the fox began to show signs of improvement. She ate the food they provided, though cautiously, and seemed to regain some strength. Her eyes, which had been filled with fear and uncertainty, slowly began to soften. One morning, as the men gathered around the box, the fox finally moved, shifting ever so slightly and sitting up to look around. The men watched in awe, their hearts swelling with hope. "We're making progress," Daniel said quietly, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Evan nodded. "It's going to take time, but we'll get there." With time, the fox's condition improved further, and the fishermen knew it was time to make a decision about her future. They couldn't keep her in the boat forever, and they couldn't release her back into the wild without making sure she had a safe place to live. After some discussion, they agreed on the perfect solution: an old cabin at the edge of Silverstone Bay, a quiet, secluded place surrounded by beautiful wilderness. The cabin was remote enough to offer the fox the peace and safety she needed, yet close enough that the fishermen could visit her regularly. They set the cabin up with a cozy spot for the fox to rest. Old dog kennels were moved around, and a safe space was created for her to explore. The fox, now fully recovered, explored her new home cautiously, sniffing around and taking in the sights and smells of her new environment. It wasn't the wild, but it was a good place, one that offered her safety, warmth, and the chance to start anew. As the weeks passed, the fox began to settle into her new home. The men continued to visit, bringing food and checking on her progress. At first, she was shy, but slowly she began to trust them more. She would run to meet them as they arrived, her once cautious movements now replaced by a playful energy. The fox, no longer the fragile creature they had first rescued, was becoming a strong and confident animal. The fox's playful antics became a joy to watch. She ran through the snow, pounced on imaginary prey, and darted in and out of the brush, her movements graceful and agile. It was as if she had fully embraced her new life, the fear that had once dominated her existence now replaced by a growing sense of security. The fishermen couldn't help but smile as they watched her. The bond between them and the fox had become something deeper, something unspoken. They had saved her, and in doing so, they had witnessed the resilience of nature itself. That's the end of the story today. What do you think made the Arctic fox trust the fishermen after everything it had been through? And how do you think we can continue to protect and care for creatures like her in the wild? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching to the end. If you find our video interesting, please give it a big thumbs up and share it with others. Finally, don't forget to turn on our bell and subscribe to our channel. Animals need love, so you don't miss any of our new videos. Thank you for your support. Wishing you all peace, happiness, take care, and we'll see you in the next one.